So should we kick this off? I think it's time. It's time, and we have plenty of peeps here. So yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
We're just gonna kind of follow standard roundtable procedures. Start on this end, and then kind of do a good swipe, and then we'll jump over again and do another swipe, and possibly another swipe, and another swipe. So any questions? What? You guys have questions? I don't believe you. Up here.
Could you elaborate a little bit on what your kind of design philosophy is for law at the moment? Kind of over the last 15 years, we've seen law on a very kind of one-to-one basis, and it's shifted towards a much more kind of global scheme where you've got plots that kind of anybody can get into, like the stuff with the Travians, where pretty much anybody could have done it if they wanted to, although one group absolutely nailed it. Whereas previously systems like, I know Aurora was problematic, but that was much more kind of finding groups that had specific interests in certain areas and doing storylines that were really deep but quite limited.
Well, I mean, the main basis of philosophy is that, okay, everything players do in EVE is canon.
Yes.
It's as valid canon as any material that we write at CCP in the prime fiction, the background story. And if the more players that we give the opportunity to engage with background story with, the more it reinforces one another. Players taking actions in EVE reinforces the background story canon, and I think some players probably, or you hear, feel that it can reinforce your own stories when you engage with the background. So the last kind of period of storyline development has been aimed towards that in various ways. That also feeds into the live events that are now periodically happening on like roughly a monthly basis. So that's the foundation of it.
Okay.
So I just want to say one amazing thing for Arch with this new storyline and everything. You guys did so much and figured out so much more, because I'm a student that can't figure out half the puzzles you guys had in there. So my question is, how much more have you guys put into the game, and how much more do you plan on putting in lore-wise for having great collaboration between players and the storyline?
So this whole process was extremely dynamic. I mean, the last triangulated crossword shenanigans that we put out was like, the story is basically like, the guys are solving this way too quickly, we need something complex. We asked CCP Cognac if he could make up something complex, and he just like went through the roof. So it's been a really fun experiment, playing kind of, giving law a little bit more depth and like different ways of participating with law. And kind of bringing it close to the core of the game, and I would love to do, we would love to do more of it in the future.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
But like many things at CCP, we just we get a crazy idea, and we're a small agile team, and we can execute quite quickly oftentimes. So we have like we have an overarching idea of the storyline, and then we allow it to adjust and meld with.
We kind of don't. We basically have like a starting point and an idea of where we want to go to, a few milestones along the way, but we do plan and expect that we'll have to adjust our plans according to what players do, and that's actually welcome. Sometimes it causes some difficulties, but that's all part of the fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Few difficulties between us.
So sort of a question I asked yesterday, you said to wait till this one, I guess, to really get into it at all. But with the Drifters, we had a lot less ability to have some personal agency for characters, given that each of them are, it's like a ranking anyhow, and they don't talk to anyone. With whoever the Triglavians are, will we be seeing a little more, not outright interaction, but at least ability to see into a little what they're saying and a little more personal bits for them?
The short answer is yes. I mean, I think the Drifters have their thing where they don't talk to anyone. They've got absolutely no interest in talking to Capsuleers because they hate them. and I wonder why. But the Triglavian civilization is human in origin, as with all civilizations and sentient beings in Eve, including the rogue drones. But their civilization is a little unusual, and some more things will emerge, but they'll be a little more communicative. And actually, as you've seen, they have been making attempts to contact the New Eden.
And we will also, one of the fun drops in Abyss and Dead Space is actually a Triglavian suit, so you can like kind of fuel your inner Triglavian. What I just realized while sitting here is that we haven't shown a single picture of that suit. And we're planning not to show you guys a single picture of that suit. Yeah, we're not. We shouldn't.
Until a certain somebody extracts it from the files.
Okay, so in 2 months' time, it'll be 10 years since the Elder Fleets.
Mm-hmm.
There's been no mention of them, pretty much. And that's sort of like not mentioning the Empress, as they're sort of our religion. In your guys' opinions, are we ever going to hear anything about the Elders ever again?
Amar Victor.
It's possible. I mean, the elders have returned to the Nimitar Republic in one form or another. I mean, if you know about the elders, they are kind of the spiritual leaders with some unusual wrinkles of the Nimitar, and they're there, so there might be some more to come. Certainly don't rule it out.
On a somewhat related note for that, faction warfare has been around for a while, and it is kind of a silly idea to begin with, and it seems like it's been forgotten about by the empires. There doesn't seem to have been much from the empires about this war that they've been conducting with each other through the proxy of capsuleers for the past decade. Has there been any thought to giving some more reason for that? I know the game design isn't going to be touching faction warfare for at least a little while. So has there been any thought to using lore as at least something to give faction warfare incentive, meaning?
I mean, it's possible, but I think it's quite difficult. I mean, to be absolutely straightforward, after, I think we should say that after we had to make some changes at CCP last year, this is a small team. The resources are quite limited. And touching back on the philosophy of storytelling in Eve, ultimately, although Eve is more than a video game, it is a video game. And so lore starts with gameplay, and it supports the gameplay. Now your idea there is, okay, maybe we can give factional warfare a bit of extra context with lore. We could maybe do that if we had kind of the context, the bandwidth for it. Maybe if there's more of a call for it. But it's difficult to see how that would solve some of the problems of factional warfare. I think factional warfare as a gameplay feature has problems that ultimately would have to be addressed through gameplay revisions.
Sorry, I'm not quite at ease.
No worries.
So I want to know, how do you balance the openness of the lore? Because, for example, the Triglavian collective could easily be angered simply by the agency, and eventually the agency go kill Triglavian collective and would pretty much kill every lore-wise reason to have a diplomatic relation with them. So how do you balance that? And also on the sorry, I'm searching my words. How do you balance the fact that not everyone have the resources, maybe, I don't know if it's the right word, to really dive into the lore, because there's huge things to learn. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. I mean, with the when you introduce a new feature like Abyssal Dead Space with the Triglavians in, I mean, in the first release, as you've heard at multiple presentations and round tables, the Triglavians will be an enemy. But it may be that in the future there'll be ways to interact with them in the gameplay, and there might be some lore stuff around them to kind of give them a little bit more depth than just another thing to shoot at or be shot at by. On the general issue of the openness of lore and how many people can engage with it, it is true. It's a 15-year-old game. It has very deep and forbidding lore. One of the IPs I compare it to is Battletech, which has an extraordinarily forbidding lore. If anyone's familiar with it, they'll know it. They, though, have the advantage of many products and many novels that deal with all that stuff. And we're not in that position. We're trying to sort of fill in the gaps with the fiction portal. The fiction portal continues to be worked on. It's worked on very with a lot of hard effort by our volunteers. The ISD team and the New Eden correspondents are our volunteer lore and player reporting team, and they've done a tremendous amount of work on the fiction portal. I think they deserve a round of applause. There are some of them here. But ultimately, it is a CCP responsibility to make the lore more accessible to you and all players of EVE Online, and we try to do that, but it is a challenge.
So you guys kind of taking your stories and started writing. It seems like you're writing a lot more from like a Concord perspective than individual empires and that sort of thing. Is that a conscious push to make it so that more race, or depending on whatever race you chose, you can kind of come into that lore a little easier, or is it just easier to write with that kind of singular perspective of kind of humanity versus everybody else? Because I don't know, I like killing Keldari, but I like having a really good reason to kill Keldari. I don't need a good reason to kill Keldari, but I like it.
Nobody needs. Again, the honest answer to this is that it's primarily a combination of bandwidth and the gameplay focus of the game. So it makes a lot of sense given the current build-up to the expansion and its aftermath when it releases, to do it from this perspective. I do have a ambition. It's an ambition. It's an aspiration to, for the rest of this year, try and do more Big Four Empire-oriented lore bits and pieces with the help of volunteers, with the help of interested devs within CCP. The Four Empires remain the pillars of EVE Online's lore. There's no question about that. And I do regret that we haven't been able to give them individual love, but my promise to you is that I will try my best to give them some more individual love in the remainder of this year and in the future.
When those sites came out, it seemed like Concord was losing control of the Capsulean group of players, basically. And that seemed to be the developer and lore sentiment, was that the Capsuleans were coming into their own, they were becoming their own society and almost an empire unto themselves against the other. Yeah, and they kind of, in the trailer even, Concord said, look, don't go into the ghost sites.
Yeah.
They're off limits, there will be consequences, but there were never any consequences. We still go into ghost sites, have no issues.
Yeah.
And we're breaking a fundamental Concord proviso saying don't do it.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any continuation of that.
No, and it's true, and I think Concord has realised that you're out of control, and
As Angry Concord guy,
the Angry Concord guy. Angry Concord guy has lost the argument.
Oh yeah, he's with the horses.
And the Society of Conscious Thought recently became a member of the Concordian Circle. They took over the Jove's old seat with the very few remaining Jove survivors' blessings. Well, some of the surviving Joves. And they see the Capsuleers as the Society of Conscious Thought see the Capsuleers as the future. And Concord has a lot on its plate with Santia, Drifters, Incursions, Blood Raiders, Guristas, etc., etc., etc. So I think a page has been turned where Concord will be looking to actually welcome Capsuleers in the fight against emergent threats.
And the current story arc involving Drifters and Tragladians, were those two opponents conceived together, or was it more came first in Drifters or Tragladians and there was just not step build up, or was it really enough kind of a mind game and where everybody conceived and just took time to implement all those things?
I mean, I'm quite happy to say the Drifters were conceived a long time ago now, several years ago now. The Triglavians were a recent development in storyline because we saw a need for them. However, they do have a fully worked out backstory that connects back to the deeper history of Eve, which I'm not going to tell you. Here and now, you might uncover some clues when Into the Abyss goes live and beyond. But I mean, I think it would be silly of me to pretend that the Triglarians were the plan all along from Caroline Star onwards. That's not really how it works. Again, in gameplay, in game development, storyline tends to develop as gameplay needs arise.
In the corner back there.
Are there any plans to give any lore love for the pirate factions? Not the Sancha because of the incursion, but like Angel Cartel especially, maybe Serpentis or Guristas or Blood Raiders.
I would include love for the different pirate factions in the general support pillars of EVE Online storyline. The empires and pirate factions exist in mutually opposing pairs. If you leave aside Sancha are a slight oddity here, but you have the Empire and the Blood Raiders, Guristas, Caldari, the Galente, Serpentis, Mimitar, Angel. So I think the more we tell stories about the empires, we'll inevitably also tell stories about the pirates. And bear in mind that I think the pirates have had some gameplay and storyline love with the forward operating bases for the Blood Raiders and Guristas, the shipyards, and I think developments of that kind are still, foreseeable at some point in the future. Continuing with that.
Back here.
Okay, so is there any lore reason that we don't see the pirate factions in the Abyss space? Because if technology is given up to the Capsuleers, the pirate factions is obviously also can use it.
Should we say it?
Can of worms?
Well, they might get there at some point.
Who knows?
See what you've done?
It's all his fault.
Of course, we now have the technology to go into Triglavian space. We know that they have the technology to somehow get to ours because of that captured cruiser. Is there any thought that this might be seen to them as another invasion and they might attempt to retaliate back into our space?
Yes. And maybe they already have been.
Ooh.
Yes.
What is the long-term story arc involvement with non-human entities? Is there any plans to introduce non-human entities in the future?
There are no plans to introduce aliens into EVE Online.
We are aliens. That's the standard word.
Question. Are there any plans to include other incursions? I know drifter incursions were a thing until they were very broken and farmable. But are there any plans on having other incursions and like have Sancho scale back and like see if the risks come out for the next 8 years or something?
So there is nothing like currently on the roadmap, but it's definitely something that we've been thinking about a lot. And if you've been following kind of team phenomenon and what we've been doing, and with like the mining operations and the what do you call them?
Forward operating bases.
The forward operating bases.
And the shipyards.
No, when they sent out.
The mining ops.
No, they sent out like if you haven't taken care of them, they sent out this tiny beautiful fleet that will destroy your structures and kill everything in their way. So basically, that tack, is built up like a really good ground for doing, incursion style gameplay. So we are like slowly building up a lot of the building blocks to do stuff like that. But I'm not promising anything here, and like we don't have a timeline. But this is like kind of in the long run, we would love to kind of start to take a look at like these older systems and introduce this new AI tech into which systems are first. That time will tell. So behind.
I was going to ask about the TV series, whether that's still a project that's going ahead, and if Law's going to be leading to side into that.
That's not been anything that I've been directly working with. Don't think you have.
No.
Anyway, basically we have nothing to announce about the Eve TV series is our answer, because we are, neither of us are directly involved in any negotiations that might be happening on that.
Right. So Netflix is a rumor.
Oh, that is a rumor.
Okay.
Do you envision, as part of generating this lore, more projects to affect the Empire topography of the lore? Like, I know the Drifters are more sort of like a New Eden live issue, whereas do you envision, that's one. Second, do you envision some of the other forgotten races, like the Endrone, the Tok'mal? No, not Tok'mal. They're with the sleepers, but the Tok'mal.
Young or whatever.
Some of the others. And third, there were a couple articles last year about some NPC only combat events where like a mining operation was attacked by a forward operating base that got reinforced by the fleet, that then got attacked by drifters.
Yep.
No one saw it. And no one saw it.
Yep.
And we only found out about it because it was in the kill files that you knew that happened. Do you see things like that feeding into the lore side?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, on the let's say the geography of New Eden, that again is I think always first and foremost going to come from gameplay. So something like a future revision of factional warfare, or something like an adaptive incursion system. But as CCP Berger said, we don't have any plans for that at the moment. But lore would always support that and try to make it more engaging for all players. On the immersion stuff with the new NPCs, I mean, that's the thing that we at the back of my mind expected, but it still kind of took us a bit by surprise at the three-way one.
That was
happened. It's quite entertaining.
So the animation of Triglavian space, where they go down this tube and they're in this chamber and they go down this other tube. It looked very similar to the subspace graphics of the E-physics that I presented last year. That's kind of in the book.
I wonder where the inspiration came from.
Confirmed, thank you.
Well done, Charles, well done.
I'm not a Triglavian.
Are you sure?
Okay.
With the Triglavian ships, I'm not sure on the design side of things how much this would have been a. Did I mention this yesterday about the balls on the ships and old Taliban and stuff? Or
no, you didn't say
We're not going to be talking about Taliban balls.
Why are you asking about the balls? Just follow in front of all the old Taliban ships. This is the same sort of thing.
Go. Yeah.
So, what's going on with the EOM at the moment?
Well, you know, the EOM, the equilibrium of mankind. This is the very, very strange, even for a splinter faction from the Amar splinter faction that wants to kill you all and everybody else, and then kill themselves. So that New Eden is pure and free of all humanity. And they're not doing much visible at the moment.
This is a bit of an oddball, and I'm not sure if you're allowed to tell us. But if we venture to the abyssal dead space and have a combat with these Triglavian structures, the game, does it confirm anything about that to us? Are there civilians in those structures? Are there people besides the potential Triglavian pilots? Do we get to know?
Well, they are human in origin.
They are human in origin. Yeah, you might find some things out.
Yeah. The question is, if I went there, I won't because I'm a very bad fighter. But if I went there and destroyed a structure, would I know if I killed civilians or not?
I don't think so, really. No, there probably wouldn't be any. There probably wouldn't be any game mechanical idea that you'd killed civilians.
It's like when you're on the ship, you don't know how many crew you got.
But there has been lore articles on how many crew to expect.
There might be some of that, but not announcing anything right now.
As a fun Sunday project a couple of years ago, I wrote a little scraper that scraped sea killboats and calculated from that lore like the amount of civilians that had been killed. 3 months into a year, it was like a few billion civilians died. And when it came, it was just like one Sunday, so it was just like a little joke for myself. But I still decided to put a little logo of a family on the thing. Let me dig it up.
With the Triglavian ships, when they blow up, are they going to blow up or will they collapse into the singularity?
They have a unique explosion.
They have a unique explosion.
So you'll see a unique explosion. You first, and then.
Did you have any particular reason for using Triglavians as a new faction instead of reusing one of the old semi-forgotten factions that exist, like in the Cosmos missions and things like that, instead of reusing one of those?
Yeah.
Do you have plans for those instead that you didn't want to use?
The gentleman earlier asked about so there's the Yanyong, the Takmal, the Talakan. The Talakan are a completely they wouldn't have fitted, and I don't think either the Takmal or the Yanyong. In my estimation, when I looked at everything, we thought, well, none of the other races fit. We've said some things about the Talakan, which to my mind means that they just don't fit. The Talakan are kind of like to the Jove, what the Jove are to everybody else. So they really don't work for us here. And the other two, the Takmal and Yanyong, have certain things about their history that didn't work because they had a little bit of an established history. So we went with the Triglavians as a newly uncovered faction.
So I wanted to know if you plan to include some ways to discover the lore as a hidden stuff. Because, for example, in the Cursed region, when you dig up a little bit of the lore, Cursed region is supposed to be filled of Jove ruins.
It was.
Yeah, it was. Because recently I got there and there's pretty much there is nothing related to the Jove. So I wanted to know if you like plan, for example, the Sister of Eve kind of treasure hunt where you needed to go there and there and there and there and there.
Yep. No sort of firm plans. It's always an aspiration to add those things in. The Project Discovery Memorial Treasure Hunt, if you like, was a little side project that I added in. I mean, we were always going to put the memorial in, but adding the treasure hunt, so to speak, to it was something I could do because it fitted in with some of the other work we were doing. But again, with the resources, we attend to the needs of game development, and then we try to do as much as possible around it that we can, again, including with other devs who are interested and with our NEC volunteer writers.
And the white shirt here?
So this is, I was going to ask this at the faction warfare panel, but I feel like you guys might actually have a better answer. When you hop into a faction warfare plex, there is a rat that's there, and you have to kill the rat. And normally we kill about 7 of those rats for every plex. Who's flying those rats? Like, is that Navy personnel?
Yes,
or?
yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Navy, not militia.
Yeah, are they well paid?
Not anymore. Well, I mean, it depends on the. I mean, with the NPCs are identified as whatever they are, X, Y, Z. So it's personnel that belong to those organizations. They're not capsuleers.
Is there any plans to expand the lore regarding Earth?
Oh, no.
You asked my question.
No. There are no plans to talk about Earth in the lore.
Well, on that point, Vilmar had visions of this this new Eve gate. Is there going to be any expansion on that?
Were they using drugs at the time?
Oh,
the prophecy. The great prophecy, getting back to Earth potentially.
Relations to Earth and the
There's nothing we're going to announce here.
Okay.
There are long-range plans, but whether they're connected to that or not, we're not.
We just zip. Back there.
Are there any plans to, with building on the lore for the Four Empires, to start reintroducing events or story chains requiring or wanting encapsulators to help, similar to the old pre-Muriel style events?
The old pre-what, sorry?
Pre-Muriel ones?
Oh, I see. There are no plans for that, no. I mean, we wouldn't rule out live actor events. We did do a live actor event recently, but we've got no plans for a regular series of those. I would look to the live events that are provided through the agency as the main sort of accessible to everyone storyline type events.
Are the empires themselves going to be reacting any differently than Concord are to the Triglavians, or are they going to be reacting through Concord? Basically, are there going to be any extra interactions between the empire that are triggered by this?
I mean, mostly they'll be working through Concord. They certainly will, they take their own individual views on things like this, but anything like that will be reflected in supporting lore where it's possible, but I don't think you'll see anything like that in gameplay in the client.
And the seasons and events involves shooting things. Now that Logi, Joseph and Gilbert,
Yep.
there possibly be also like events where we go in and repair things, for example.
It's certainly conceivable. I mean, actually, we have quite a new event tracking backend, which, I mean, I think different types of events, different types of activities within events that contribute to your kind of score in the event or your rewards from the event are definitely possible. One of the nice things about the last few years is that our internal tools and our technologies have been developing constantly, so it's certainly conceivable that you'd see things like that. More of a question for the live events team, but I think I can say it's possible you'd see things like that.
But one thing actually for that you guys might enjoy to hear is that one of the reasons why we actually went into, one of many reasons why we went into the refactoring of the kill mails is that today how we, like internally, how we report on NPC kills in our metrics data, we actually collapse all the NPCs of the same type into a single entity, and it really messes us up, like Team Phenomenon, when we were kind of generating, you know, new procedurally generated NPCs that are supposed to be much more hardcore. It just kind of limits the data that we get. So all NPC kills are actually going to have a kill mail, and we are possibly looking at also releasing those to the public. So yeah, you will see like NPCs wrapping and stuff like that, and players wrapping NPCs.
So I'm pretty sure I've checked before departing to the Fanfest, and Drifters had a lot of standings with all empires, and currently on the tranquility it's reset to 0-0 between all the factions and the Drifters. Is there a low reason for that, or I missed something, or it wasn't the case?
Are you talking about the standings? Sorry.
Standings, in-game standings between empires and Drifters.
There's no particular law reason, perfectly honest with you. I mean, the standings system, it has sort of far more to do with the content that's delivered through the mission system and related systems, and there are no such systems associated with the Drifters, so it's more of a game mechanical reason.
So, as I have a positive standings with Drifters, it feels like a little bit unnatural that you have a positive standings with them because of the skills that do that.
Sure.
Maybe we can just put the -3 by default, so the derived standings will be still negative or something. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yep.
But here, what do the Triglavians call themselves?
Triangle. Do you want to go a more real answer?
I mean, they call themselves the Triglavians. That's actually their name for themselves. Their symbolic language is not that difficult to translate given the technology in New Eden. I mean, your characters are all communicating with one another through very advanced translation technology in the lore of the world. And once you get a sort of almost a pry bar into what a new language is, it's not difficult for that to be translated to the technology in New Eden. And the Triglavian Collective is their name for themselves.
Hi. Okay. A lot of the lore that I got was delivered through the Scope videos. Are you all going to continue? What's the future of Scope and the future of other potential, I guess what do we call it, the base corporation that you join when you leave the corporation? You know, what is going to be the future of those in lore, and like basically the future of Scope, and giving us that info about sleepers.
So there is actually a big Scope coming out
Monday, I think.
Monday, yeah, on the whole kind of Abyssal Dead Space and Triglavian storyline. It's a pretty epic Scope. It's like close to 10 minutes. 7.
I think 7. It's a considerably extended version of I think it's the 2-minute one we've shown on the
it's like a
keynote.
Yeah.
And
that's
there's another 5 or 6 minutes.
Do you get to see every Concord guy?
I'm not sure if the Shade update actually made it to the build, but But actually, Scope is a beautiful homegrown project by CCP Loki that we should all give endless love to. He has a whooping team of 1 doing the Scope. And he also has like all sorts of other things.
Yep.
He actually has like 56 hours in his day.
You have all the resources.
Yeah.
By the way, you said you didn't have much resources for lore.
Well,
yeah.
Absolutely. That's why.
But I mean, we definitely want to continue to do the scopes. I mean, the cadence has kind of dragged out a little bit. We've been playing with like a couple of like bigger ideas that might roll out later in the year. But we definitely want to continue with this scope, and but we can't really promise like a regular interval on them. But for like from our side, it's a really nice way to talk about. It's a really nice way to kind of talk about in-game events, both from like player point of view and what players are doing without kind of breaking immersion. And then I just have to give a shout out to the whole Discord shenanigans that's been going on. Yep. Many sleepless nights because of how quickly you solved stuff and threw out new Discords, and it's super cool, awesome. Thank you. And over to you.
So with the conflict between the Triglavians and the Drifters, are the Triglavians responding in terms of the Drifters attacking them, or is it actually something where they're actively pursuing the Drifters as well?
Well, the Drifters are in Abyssal Dead Space for their own reasons, and the Triglavians have built up an entire civilization in there, and in the first instance see the Drifters as an invading force. There may be more things to the conflict, but we'll let you find those out in due course. Back there.
The Triglavians, with their mutoplasmids, seem to have very advanced bioscience.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of bioweapons might they have, and are there any links between them and last year's plague and any of the evidence of plagues we've seen throughout the universe?
What a question.
What a question. There's nothing I could say in terms of a link between the Triglavians and Kaionoki. Kaionoki is I would say is a separate thing. I mean, you are entirely free to speculate about links, but I have nothing to tell you about links between the two things. The Triglavian biotechnology is mostly oriented around them adapting to the very, very harsh conditions of Abyssal Dead Space. For various reasons, they were forced to take refuge in Abyssal Dead Space in their history. And they found themselves having to adapt to those conditions. They have a certain mastery of space-time technology, but they also have a strong mastery of biotechnology, and what it really is a more of a bioengineering approach to nanotechnology. So their use of the mutoplasmids is to continually adapt their systems to the needs of each individual abyssal pocket that they're traveling through, because abyssal space has extremely variable conditions both globally and locally. So that's what they use them for. The specific mutoplasmids will apply themselves to different areas of technology, such as propulsion, and that's how they can work with New Eden technology, but as you've seen, they have unpredictable results.
Are there any plans of implementing the concept of multiverses to the lore?
No plans.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you go back into K-space, you do this through a gate, right? Through a Triglavian gate.
Mm-hmm.
Does it imply that the Triglavians have the ability to get into every part of K-space on their own? And if they do have that, okay.
Are we upstream? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you draw that can draw that inference. You might then ask yourself why they haven't been in K-Space. Maybe there are reasons.
And I definitely recommend wearing a tinfoil hat. In the corner.
Speaking on the bioengineering, would it be possible if, say, somebody were to have a sample of Kayaniki that maybe has gotten improved, not really saying somebody is or is not doing it, would that work on the biotechnology of the Triglavians, and how devastating would it be?
I have no idea personally. I'm not, I mean, you know, Eve is a science fiction world. You shouldn't forget about the fiction in science fiction, so it's possible. But I'm not going to tell you that it is possible, that it is happening, or is likely to happen.
Are you suggesting we should get their ships very sick?
Well, I'm suggesting that we just use that weapons of mass destruction for Capsuleers are certainly a viable way to wage war. We are major assholes after all.
Very slow.
Kill the mortals!
Okay.
Considering that the scope videos are hugely opulent to make, and I know that programs have absolutely no clue how this magic works, but with the ticker on the floor, can that somehow be implemented in the launcher or in the agency overview, so like the market thing in the market? So yeah, a little bit of lore and stuff, so those two guys can actually go with the magnifying glass over it. The balance between.
That's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
Thank you.
You would have to be way more careful what you write there. Or just have to scroll extremely quick.
Implement ownership on that.
Up here.
So with the drifters, and then from a couple of years ago, the new player experience. Of course, the new player experience embraced the drifters, and there was everyone knows there was a sorely needed player experience. Since then, it has been promised that the new player experience will be built upon also to further guidance of players into the game. Might the Triglavians be used also to like further the arc of the single player going through the new player experience?
I mean, anything is definitely possible. I really don't want to comment on this.
There isn't really
right
anything. There's nothing to say about that. So
it's like a
no, it's.
You mentioned the trigs had been pushed out of our space into the abyssal dead space.
Yep.
What pushed them out of our space into the abyssal dead space? What could possibly have pushed such a strong action?
What could have pushed something that strong out of gnome space? And so there's a lot of questions in that question.
There's a lot of questions. It's a great question. I think it's more valuable all round for you guys to discover these things through playing the game and seeing how the story unfolds.
You're hoping to drop breadcrumbs, so?
I think there are things that you will discover. There will certainly be at the very least hints as to what happened in the past.
So a question from one of the older members of Ushrakan. Between the various Vetoxin cures...
I was at the fall of Karashel's Defiance, you know. Anyway, go on.
The Empress Jamal freeing a bunch of slaves and the amount of time that we dominated the war zones, like the last 2 years, give or take. Had there been any actual lessening in the number of Mimitar slaves in the galaxy? Compared to, say, maybe some more Galentis slaves or something?
I mean, there are still billions of Minotaur enslaved in the Amar Empire. Jamal released the 9th generation, but that was then. That was at that sort of snapshot, if you like. And as you know, I can't remember off the top of my head the exact proportions, but there is a very significant segment of the Minmatar population in New Eden are still enslaved.
I will stand down.
Up here.
So for gameplay reasons, we're not turning the Abyssal Dead Space into new wormhole space. Like it's the self-contained area. But are Triglavians able to go through arbitrary numbers of pockets in different places like that? Like, lore-wise, would they be able to, say, start in Ren, the Abyssal Dead Space that's near Rens or connected to Rens or however it works, and then end up in a Mar?
I mean,
without coming into K-Space in the middle.
I follow you. Basically, in lore, the Triglavians have mastered the Abyssal Dead Space as a domain as far as it's kind of possible for someone to, so they have much greater freedom of movement throughout Abyssal Dead Space. The Drifters have their own ways of getting in and out of there as well. So if you know what you've suggested as a way of like going from one case-based system through Abyssal Dead Space to another could be possible for the Triglavians. Yeah, there's no law reason why not.
And presumably more pocket, like they would move from pocket to pocket, but have more than just the three.
They have the means of moving within it. Means that they've lived there for quite a long time and know how to get around.
So we only have time for 2 more questions, so we'll take these 2 here up front. You can fight who gets first.
So is there a law reason why the Triglavian ships can be constructed, whereas drifter ships can't be? Well, there's no design for building and flying drifter ships. Is there a law reason behind why we're able to get into Triglavian technology but not the drifter technology? Because we've had our hands on the drifters for quite some time.
Yeah.
We've ripped them apart.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, ultimately, sometimes gameplay there has to be a little bit of a hand wave. That's the nature of writing for video games. I would say though that I feel comfortable that there's a little bit of a lore underpinning in that I think Triglavian technology is actually a little bit more approachable, and by its nature it's an adaptable technology. So I actually think it's considerably easier to reverse engineer and adapt Triglavian technology than it is to deal with drifter technology. But the truth of the matter is it's a gameplay reason.
And the last question here.
So now that we know that the damaged drifters that have been seen in K-Space were damaged by the Triglavian, and obviously we've seen damaged Triglavian ship, who shot first?
The fog of war is a terrible thing, but but I will say, at the very least, the drifters are unquestionably considered an invading force by the Triglavians. So I think, in some ways, who shot first is slightly moot.
All right.
That was the last question.
That was the last question. So
I would like, for those who haven't noticed, earlier, about an hour ago, I published a new chronicle on the Fiction Portal. That's called Sine Wave Omega. That's the follow-up to Sine Wave Alpha. One point about this chronicle is that it has 3 mentions in it of 3 winners of a Fanfest cosplay competition. So there's 3 names mentioned of capsuleers in that chronicle, and I'll let people find those out. And I hope you enjoy reading the chronicle when you find time, maybe on your journey back home. And thanks for coming to the round table. Enjoy the party tonight. Maybe I'll catch up with some of you there.